What's going on, guys? Mark here with another live stream on a Friday night. I'm going to wait just a little bit and wait for you guys to get in the chat room, and then we will begin. But we're doing Fuji news tonight. Everything is going to be Fuji related. So if you're not a Fuji shooter, or I guess even if you're not and you just like Fuji news, then stick around. We'll talk about it. So let me hop on over here to the chat room as well to hook up with you guys. Let's see. How is everyone this evening, by the way? I hope everyone is well. I've been doing a lot of nighttime shooting, as you guys can tell from my videos. Actually, it's not even really been nighttime shooting. It's been like early morning. That's how early I get up in the morning. This morning, I was wide awake at probably 3 o'clock. Finally managed to pull myself out of bed around 4:30, and then I was outside shooting right after that. Thanks, Dave. Thank you very much. Eric Mark says, had no clue you were going live tonight. Yeah. See, the reason he says that is I just got done talking to him on Instagram. Eric Marks is supposed to be on the show with me right now, but he says he's driving and he can't make it to the show. He said, let's do it at 9:45. Yeah, no one would be up at that time, or at least up and sitting at their computer. At least I would hope not. Who the hell sits at the computer at 9:45 on a Friday night? If any of you all say it's you, I'm just going to act like you don't exist. All right. So let me see here. Get my Google Hangouts back up. All right. So lots and lots and lots of Fuji news. And I'm sure that if you subscribe to any other photographers that do shoot Fuji, then you have probably seen the massive amounts of new stuff that is being not only released in hardware terms, but also in software terms. And that's always a good thing for us Fuji shooters, because Fuji has a really good reputation of releasing firmware updates to old cameras. And I say old, and I'm literally talking about, even the X-T1 is only like, what is it, 3-4 years old, something like that. It's not very old, and it's not like it's completely a dinosaur at this point, but they're still releasing updates for it. Now, this particular update I don't think is going to be applying to the X-T1, but it is definitely applying to the X Pro 2, the X-T2, the X-T20, and also, what were the other ones? Well, and of course, you've got the new camera, the X-E3. So let's talk about all the things that I'm most interested in. First of which is being the firmware update that's going to be happening and applying to what I have, which is the X-T2. So if you guys have, oh yes, and Andrea DeMeo says the X100F. You're right. But the biggest thing for me personally was the firmware update that's coming to those cameras. So here we go. You can be as excited or as non-excited as you want, but seriously, some of the stuff that Fuji is releasing for these brand new cameras are just ridiculously good. And I think that is probably one of the bigger draws to Fuji, is that instead of having to go out in another year and buying a whole brand new camera that a camera manufacturer fixes, or, I don't know. I don't even want to say fix, because most of the stuff they could easily fix at any time that they wanted to, but they end up not doing that. Okay. So they just create a new camera the very next year or in a year and a half, and then they release it, and then you get your fixes, but you have to spend $2,000 in order to get that. Not the case with Fuji at all. So here are some of the updates. So the Fujifilm X Pro 2. So if you happen to shoot with the X Pro 2, this is the big one. You're getting the addition of 4K video, but you don't get it in HDMI out, unfortunately. So if you just are concerned about having a camera that you can capture some really good video inside the camera, For you X Pro 2 shooters, you're going to now get it internally. The update as 4K video, you're also going to get the film simulation modes in video, which is pretty awesome. And you can also do input audio from an external microphone, excluding HDMI output. So, unfortunately, you get it, but you don't get it with, say, like an external Atomos Ninja or, small focus or anything like that. As far as I'm concerned, the X Pro 2 is more of a street shooting camera anyway. It's sort of, it's more tailored to those that are just looking to, grab whatever they can, however they can, on the street. So this seems to fall in line. It doesn't seem like you would want to take the X Pro 2 out and then start rigging it up with, a lot of, rails and monitors and external microphones and just going all crazy and stuff with it. So, it seems to kind of fall in line with its design language. The X-T2, on the other hand, it does have design language that's more compatible with hooking a bunch of extra shit up to it. But again, it's just my opinion. I still think it's a decent upgrade for the X Pro 2, honestly. So, all right. So we're also going to get support on the X Pro 2 for tethering via USB or Wi-Fi. You're also going to get new AF tracking algorithm for moving subjects. That also applies to the Fujifilm X-T2. So apparently, if we read the I would just have to be okay with that. Okay. And I just wasn't cool with it. But, I know that some people are just, raving. Everything is just, it's just fantastic with Nikon's new D850 and everything. But it's not that revolutionary. And I know I caught a lot of flack for my D850 video. I'm used to it by now, so it doesn't really bother me all that much. Okay. So number 4, the X Pro 2 and the X-T2 is they're both getting the support for the Fujifilm X Raw Studio. Now, I found this pretty interesting because I know that Lightroom and companies like Pictorial have tried to mimic or simulate Fuji's film simulations outside of the Fuji cameras. They've tried to take raw photos and process those raw photos like the Fuji cameras would have in body. And I think they do a pretty decent job. I'm not saying that these are completely whack. I'm not saying that they're garbage. I'm just saying there's just some level of finesse with the Fuji processing engine that just makes it look something really special. Okay. I sound a bit like a fanboy right now, and that I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that title. I am, in fact, a fanboy. When you spend that much money, you should be at least a little bit of a fanboy. Okay. Chad, what's going on with you? Nice to see you. But yeah, you should definitely be a little bit of a fanboy. You shouldn't, spend thousands upon thousands of dollars and go, well, it's an all right camera, So enjoy what you have spent your hard-earned money on. So I really enjoy the built-in film simulations. And while I think that they, companies like Adobe and Pictorial have done a decent job of trying to re-simulate those film simulations, they're just not quite as good. So I am really, really psyched for this. And here's basically how it works. What you do is you will take your X Pro 2 or your X-T2. You will connect it to your computer via USB. And the Fuji Raw Studio will actually use the built-in processing engine inside of your camera to take your raw photos and process it with any film simulation that you want in body. So it's using your camera as the processor. So which I find a tad limiting, but also ingenious, because if you own the camera, you already know that you love the film simulations. Me, it's Acros. Hands down, end of story. So instead of incorporating that same processing magic into a piece of software that anyone with any camera could download with any raw file that they wanted and process that beautiful Fuji magic processing on, say, like, you know, a Canon camera or a Nikon camera or a Sony camera or whatever, you actually have to own the camera and you hook it up to your, I mean, and I think the exclusivity of those film simulations add a lot of value to the system, in my opinion. So I'd be happy to hear what you guys think, though. Some people don't like exclusivity like that. But yeah, I mean, if you're paying for, you know, a Fuji camera, you should get all the perks that go along with owning a Fuji camera. Another thing is, like, if you really enjoy the autofocus of a All right, are we back? All right, so apparently I was having some technical difficulties. I apologize, guys. Everyone just said, "Oh, dude, your stream's gone." So I appreciate the update. Okay, so Andrea DeMayo says technical issues tonight. Are you using the Nikon D600? Nope, not me. Eric Mark says, you'll love the D850 for your work, Chad. I just don't need it since I have my trusty D810. And that is true. I didn't see really, I mean, I thought it was a nice upgrade over the D810, but like I said in my video, if you guys were interested, you can totally go and check that out. I just said that there was nothing really earth-shattering in this camera. There was nothing revolutionary. There was nothing in that camera, in my opinion, that said, you should buy this at $3,300. There are too many cameras now that have twice the features that only costed maybe a third of that, maybe less. I know that the Sony A6500 had a lot of what they already had. You guys have to remember, especially you Nikon guys, that the Sony sensors are inside those Nikon cameras. Every time that Nikon or some of these other camera companies update their cameras, they're only updating because Sony is now willing to give all the other camera companies their old sensor tech. You can bet your ass 110% that you are never going to get a 0-day generation sensor from Sony in any other camera body if it isn't Sony. And that's just the way it goes. So if you like 2-year-old tech, you know, and your camera company happens to be buying their sensors from Sony, that's exactly what it's going to be. A lot of the camera companies try to make up for it by adding their own little spin on either user interface or additional features that they have developed in-house. But as far as sensor tech, as far as overall image quality, as far as anything concerning the sensor, whether it be backside illuminated or, you know, stacked or just whatever, all of that is being pretty much manufactured by Sony at this point. Hey, Ryan, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Tim C says, I'm looking forward to the 200mm f2. I think that is going to be probably one of the best-selling Fuji lenses ever. Andrew DeMeo says, how much is the 8 to 16 2.8 going to cost? I don't know, and I don't think anyone else does either. People have speculated, excuse me, people have been speculating how much it's going to cost. And personally, I think it's probably going to be in the $11.99 range. So $1,200 for the 8 to 16 at 2.8. I think that's a pretty reasonable price. When they do finally release that video, that means that the entire focal range from ultra wide to standard to super telephoto is all going to be in the f2.8 range. That is huge for a camera company that has literally just started making X mount lenses within the last, I don't know, 5-6 years. The X mount for Fuji is a brand new mount. I mean, it is not that old. So within the last 5 years, Fuji has managed to create a massive line of varying lenses at varying focal lengths, at varying apertures, at varying price points for every type of shooter, whether you be a wildlife photographer with the 100 to 400, with the amazing portraits that you can get from the 56 1.2. There's just a lot of glass that has been developed, and it is not shit glass. It is not entry-level glass. Even their kit lens, which I happen to have right here, even their kit lens is built like a tank. Okay, so you're never going to pick up a Fuji lens and you go, well, man, this, you know, it's a little, you're never going to do that. And if you guys have been watching a couple of my past 2 videos with the 100-400, literally handheld shooting the moon, and the moon happens to be about 290,000 miles away. And it is staggeringly stable handheld. So imagine how stable your shots would be if you were running and gunning at a wedding or an event or something like that. You needed that extra reach. Maybe you're the second shooter and you have to shoot from way up high in the balcony of the church and you have to get in on the action. With the 100-400, you get a 150 to 600 equivalent, and it just zooms right the hell in. Fantastic focal range for someone that has to stay back. So, I mean, they've got a plethora of fantastic lenses, and it is all culminating in me really wanting that 8 to 16. I do really like the wide angle lenses for some reason, and I'm not even a landscape shooter. I just really like them. Okay, so moving on the X Pro 2, there's also going to be improved radio flash controller usability. It says the upgrade allows the users to shoot with compatible third-party studio flash in high-speed sync or TTL mode via their radio controllers. So good on Fuji for updating the X Pro 2. I don't know many photographers that actually use an X Pro 2 in studio. It seems more like people tend to buy it for street photography or casual shooting whilst they're out and about. But just having the option, that's the point, is not necessarily wanting or needing an option, but just in case you ever did want to use it, it's available. Support for the backup and restore of camera settings via Fujifilm X Acquire 1, connecting a camera to a computer via USB cable. I've never used the feature, but I have heard that it's been it saved some photographers' butts. So if you get your camera just the way you like it, and maybe something accidentally happens and you accidentally reset the whole thing, you can boot this thing up, drag all your settings in a saved file back onto your camera, and you're good to go again. Okay, so moving on to the Fujifilm X-T2. As I already mentioned, we're getting the brand new autofocus tracking. We're getting the brand new Fujifilm X Raw Studio. We're getting the improved radio flash controller usability, and we're also getting support for the backup restore of the camera settings via the Fujifilm X Acquire. Now, the Fujifilm X100F is also getting the backup and restore, Fujifilm X Raw Studio, and the improved radio flash controller usability. And the Fujifilm X-T20, the touch panel operation when using the EVF. So I don't know what exactly that means, but I'm going to read what they say here. And it says the firmware update will make it possible to use the touch panel while looking through the viewfinder. According to the operation method, it's possible to set the effective range of the touch panel to the full screen, right half, left half, or off. If I'm reading it correctly, what I understand that to mean is that depending on whether you are left-handed, right-handed, left eye dominant, right eye dominant, that you will be able to put it up to your eyeball and touch to move the focus point around. And if that's the case, that is going to be fantastic. That is a great feature. I did not find it to be all that useful on the Sony A50 or the A6500 when I tested it. It felt a little laggy, a little behind, so I was just not a fan. But I do know other companies that have done it successfully, and it works stupid good. So if they are enabling it to be either right half, left half, or having the ability to turn it completely off, I am all for that update. So let me check the comments real quick because I've been blabbing for too long. Okay, so Millie says, I guess I'll have to watch this after it's put up or read about it. No. I gave you most of the information, Millie. You can totally stick around. I am more than willing to repeat anything if you miss something. Tim C says, already possess the two teleconverters, which will function with the 200mm lens. And that's true. That was one of the good things, that if you want a really nice fast prime, telephoto lens, the new 200mm f2 is going to be compatible with both the 1.4x and the 2x teleconverters. Granted, you will lose a bit of light when you apply those teleconverters on there, and you should be just fine. You should be able to have complete and total compatibility. So fast would actually, the faster glass for this would be probably the better option. Instead of using, say, like the 100-400, I mean, it's got an f4.5 to 5.6. You losing a stop of light in broad daylight, not such a big deal. Losing that when it's around dusk, when some of these animals start to come out at night, that would be a big deal. So adding teleconverters and stuff to one that's quite a bit faster, that's a little bit more tolerable. So, all right. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about, now that we've got all the firmware stuff out of the way, is the roadmap. Like I said, the XF 8 to 16 is the one that I am most interested in. That is going to be an f2.8. That is going to be the LR WR. So we're going to get a ultra wide angle lens that is weather resistant. So people that had bought the 10 to 24mm f4, while a bit slower, it did have OIS, but it didn't have weather sealing. So to wildlife and landscape photographers, if you're wanting to take a lot of these shots in harsher conditions, the 10 to 24, I mean, you had to bring a jemmy for it. You had to cover it up. You had to make sure that it wasn't going to get wet or fouled up from the fog or whatever. So now you're going to have a weather resistant option. At first I was sort of like, well, damn, that sucks that it doesn't have optical image stabilization. I mean, the 10 to 24 does, so why wouldn't the 8 to 16? I think that it still might. But on their roadmap, on Fujifilm.eu's official website, it does not indicate that it actually has optical image stabilization included on that lens. So while I don't see it there, I really hope that it shows up. I don't want it to not. Hi, I'm back. All right, so that's twice. This Google Hangouts on air has crashed on me. I kind of feel like I'm not having very good luck tonight. Usually I have absolutely no problems with this app whatsoever. And my shit's all flipped around here. There we go. Okay. So I wasn't exactly sure where I left off. I'm just going to take a couple of comments right quick. Because I don't really remember what I was talking about right before I went off the air. Okay. NZO CEO says, what's the cheapest Fuji that's not a waste of time, just to play around with, a little room to grow? Seriously, if you want my honest opinion, get the kit lens. Get the 18 to 55. Do not get the 16 to 50 under any circumstances. Don't get that one. Get the 18 to 55. It's a fantastic lens. You will not be disappointed. That was the only lens that I got when I first got into Fuji, which wasn't that long ago. And I just kind of wanted to dip my toe in, see what it was like. But I had already ordered the 16 millimeter alongside my X-T2 order. So it was coming in, but I had to wait for like 3 or 4 days, and all I had was the 18 to 55. Won my heart right out of the gate, man. It is a fantastic lens. Ask any Fuji shooter, anyone that's ever messed with it. It is damn good enough and has built-in optical image stabilization. It's one of the best, if not the best, kit lens in the world right now. Personal opinion, and I played around with a lot of kit lenses. Because, you want to know which camera is going to be the best, so whether it be Nikon or Canon. I've played with a lot of kit lenses, Sony's included, and I'm not a huge bag. I do not bag on kit lenses very often, mainly because they are a kit lens for a reason, but this thing is like an exception, and I've talked about it ad nauseum. It's a fantastic lens, so if you're just looking to dip your toe in and see what it's all about, go ahead and scoop it up and grab it. Okay. Eric Mark says, yeah, probably the servers and the power issues from the hurricane. I would assume. I am hoping that no one is blowing away right now. So if you guys happen to watch my video earlier this week, if you have a heart and you love animals, please donate to the ASPCA for those poor, wet, cold, lost animals. And there's going to be a whole lot more of them. I hope not, but there's probably going to be a whole lot more of them in Florida. Okay. So Chad says the 50 to 140 really grew on me. I have been considering getting the full trio of f2.8s from Fuji, but I have to say that I don't know if I honestly need them. If I was doing more client work on a much regular basis, I think that I might, but I'm serious. Some of the lenses, especially those f2 primes, where they basically cover the mass. I mean, they're not zooms, so they're not really for run and gun or whatever. But they're cheap And how long does it honestly take to swap out a lens? So for about $1,500, you can get all three of the f2 primes and cover a really nice focal range for portraits, landscape, street photography. You can cover a lot of ground with those three primes. They are perfectly suited for the X Pro 2, by the way. Those lenses were made for a rangefinder style camera. These bigger, bulkier, kind of flared out like a cone lenses, like the 16 millimeter here. These lenses are not as attractive, I guess. I use that term loosely, but I don't think they're as attractive as, say, a reduced lens like those f2 primes. But it could be just me. Chat or see. Eric Mark says 18-55 is the best kit lens I have ever used, hands down. Okay, so, and he's a Nikon shooter. I'm an ex-Nikon shooter. I also shoot Sony, and I defended Sony's kit lens. Heavily defended. That's probably one of my most watched videos is Sony's kit lens garbage. A lot of people like that video. But I will agree. In comparison, there is no comparison. Andrea says, but the 16-55 is so good. It's hard to take it off the camera. Yeah, the 18-55 is ridiculous. No, you're talking about the 16-50. Okay. Tiago says, will you get the X-E3? Probably not. I might get it in for testing or review. I don't find that I like the rangefinder style cameras as much as I do classic SLR style. That's just personal preference. I'm sure that the image quality is going to be absolutely gorgeous. I just don't know that it's going to be the camera that I would buy. If I was going to buy a secondary small travel body, it would probably be the X-T20. But I still think that the X-T2, if you take the battery grip off, it is so close to the size of the X-T20, and I'm guessing that it's going to be pretty close to the size of the X-E3 in size and dimensions. That is a travel camera for me. So if anything, I would probably buy an extra X-T2 as opposed to a slim down version of the X-T2. So, or maybe even an X-T1, just as like a backup body or whatever. But, the price, especially in Europe right now, I think Fuji knocked off like $300 of the X-T2 in just like the last day or so. So if you happen to be in, the UK and you're looking to maybe get in the Fuji system, they're running a deal right now. Eric Mark says, I agree, Andrea. I use a 16-55 when I'm shooting on my tripod, and the 18-55 as a walk-around lens because of the killer OIS. Okay. Am I missing something? Is it 16-55? I thought that the Fuji other kit lens, the cheaper kit lens, was 16-50. Maybe I've got it wrong. Maybe I'm just confusing it with Sony's kit lens. Chad says, what do you think of the new Fuji 200 f2? What do you think the Fuji 200 f2 will cost? I think that one will probably be about $1,500. Just a guess. But I'm thinking either $1,299 or $1,499. And I think that they would deserve every penny of it. In order to get, 200 millimeters with a really nice prime f2, yeah, I think that's a very reasonable price. There's a lot of work that has to go into, creating glass that bright, that fast, at those larger sizes. I mean, as you can tell, most larger glass is always some larger aperture number like f4.5, 5.6, 6.3, any of those. So it just tends to be that way. The 200 f2 will be $4,000. Bullshit. If it's $4,000, that would be crazy. I was going to, seriously, Fuji is not really priced there. You would think that Fuji would have priced some of these lenses much higher than they have. I'll be willing to concede 2,000 max. I don't think they're going to go over 2,000 though. Ryan says, I have an X-T1 I'm looking to sell. Yeah, I told you probably should have just went for the X-T2. There wasn't that big of a price difference. Everyone always tries to save a little cash, and 9 times out of 10, you always regret it. So then you have to take what you have and sell it at a loss, and then you have to buy what you really wanted, and so you just spend the extra money, man. That's what you do. Tim C says, I bet it will cost closer to 2,000 or more. Drew says, I can't imagine it less than 2,000. Wow. Yeah, I don't see it being under 2,000. Really? The 50 to 140 is over 2,000. No, it's not. No. The 50 to 140 is like $1,500 here in the U.S. This thing took a dump on me again. All right, but I'm back. So it looks like nothing happened, I guess. Yeah. Andrea says, I was talking Canadian dollars. Yeah, so your dollars aren't worth as much apparently. But anyway, so $1,500 here in the US. This lens, the 16, yeah, I would say, I'm not going to say over $2,000 for the 200 f2. If I'm wrong, I'll probably be wrong by $200 in either direction. But I am either looking for it to genuinely come in $1,799. Final answer. I could be wrong, but I hope not. Okay, so the other thing that I was wanting to chat about is the 80 millimeter macro lens. Okay, so I know that a lot of you have been clamoring, have been talking a lot about the macro lens. I question whether I need it. Now, I have a very specific reason for why I question whether or not I need that lens. The biggest reason why I question whether or not I need it is because if you have ever used the 16 millimeter f1.4, the close focusing on this is stupid amazing. Now, granted, it is not 1:1. It is not true macro, but it gets so damn close. I'd be willing to probably forego a dedicated macro lens, or just wait for the price of the 60 millimeter to drop like a rock after the 80 millimeter gets released. Is that wrong? Seems reasonable to me, though. But maybe I'm just... Did it crash again? Damn it. All right. I feel like I'm fighting against the current here tonight. Yeah, it doesn't look like the chat's working either. I don't know, man. What the hell is happening? Okay, guys. Well, I tell you what, I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it up. You know, I'm willing to accept fate when it comes slapping me in the face, but I am really excited about all the different amazing things that Fuji is currently working on. All these new lenses, all these new firmware updates, old firmware is becoming new again. I think that's the reason that a lot of us have bought into the Fuji line of cameras, because they care so much about quality that even when they could push out a brand new camera and just completely replace it with a massive upgrade in, you know, software style feature sets, they just say, no, you guys have been loyal. You guys have purchased our gear. You have spent your hard-earned money, and now we're going to honor the relationship. And I appreciate that about Fuji quite a bit. So not forcing me to have to buy a new camera every year or every 6 months is a welcome change from what I was used to. So at any rate, guys, if you guys have any comments or questions, don't forget, leave those down in the comment section below. I would love to hear what you guys think about all this Fuji goodness. And I am really excited. And if you guys happen to be planning to pick up the X-E3. I'm going to be watching to see how everything goes, but if I can get my hands on a promotional copy from B&H Photo, then I will definitely do that, and I will do my due diligence. And before I go, and I do this a lot, it seems, I want to make a quick comment about the angry photographer talking about, and I watch his videos, so if he happens to catch this one, which I doubt he will, he talks a lot about us photographers that have working relationships with, like, say, B&H Photo, that send us basically evaluation gear. We don't want to buy everything. Okay, that doesn't. He released a video last night or something that was saying, well, what does that say about them? It says that we're not a dumbass being frivolous with our money and not buying every piece of gear just to say that we've got every piece of gear. And he was talking about, well, these people are rich and they've got all this money. And I'm sure that he was talking about Tony and Chelsea. But they've worked for their money, and don't be an envious bastard about it. But the fact of the matter is having a working relationship with camera companies or distributors like B&H or Amazon or any of the other companies that have ever got in contact with us, they look to us and we look to them for access to stuff that maybe we weren't interested in, or maybe we didn't even have on our radar. And having a piece of gear for 30 full days, sometimes longer, B&H is very lax with their rental program. God damn it. With their rental program. So, you know, sometimes I don't always get my gear back to them super duper fast. So, you can, if you use a piece of gear every single day for a solid 14 days, you can get a pretty damn good idea of how that thing is going to work. Take it out to your jungle, whether that be street photography or portraiture or a wedding or two. Use the shit out of it. You can get a pretty good idea of how it would fit into your workflow, how it would meld into your style. So to physically purchase every single piece of new camera tech that comes out is both dumb, financially irresponsible, and doesn't make a damn bit of sense. When you have companies like B&H that would like the extra publicity, and camera camera reviewers like myself and Tony and Chelsea and everyone else, they would like to have access to cameras that they are not really interested in purchasing. So for him to kind of go on that rant last night, I mean, it was completely ignoramus on display. Like it didn't even make logical sense. It doesn't matter how much money you have. You don't spend money just because you have it. That's how you get poor. That's how you stay poor. So if you're not financially responsible, like obviously Ken is not that financially responsible. I mean, if he's blowing his wad every single time he gets a disability check, because there's no way that he's not getting some level of government assistance. But you cannot sit there and blow every single penny that you get on this gear just because you have money. That's called irresponsibility. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. We don't make any money when we borrow gear from B&H. We don't make any money just because we want to review a piece of gear. We make money because we decided to review it and you actually were interested in it in the first place. You happen to check out our information, you checked out our test shots, you checked out our test videos, you checked out all that shit, and then you rewarded your favorite YouTuber or whoever it was by clicking the link in the description and saying thank you for your time. Thank you for, you know, not going and wasting my time. And here is a bit of a kickback on something that I was probably going to purchase anyway. So Ken doesn't really have any moral high ground by going, oh, I don't use any affiliates. I only beg for money, $2 donations on PayPal, because that's so much fucking better. So I don't know, man. Rant over. It's just, we work our asses off to make videos. And when we get complimentary loaner gear from B&H or whoever it ends up happens to be, we appreciate it. And I think to the vast majority of our viewing audience, they appreciate it too. So anyway, guys, that's all I had to say. That's all I wanted to say. I'm not really much on bashing other YouTubers, but you know, he kind of started it. So I just wanted to kind of clear the air as far as like how it actually happens. They don't give us any money. You guys just happen to thank us for our time and you click an affiliate link. That's the end of the story. We're not being biased. We're not being paid. We're not being bought out. So fuck him. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for stopping here at the Photo Video Show. I'm your host, Mark Puckett, and I will see you guys again on the next one. Peace.